All right, welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. Unfortunately, the season's over for the Tampa Bay Bucs, but you know what? You got to be proud of what they were able to accomplish this year. 9-7 is nothing to be ashamed of, considering the progress that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made over the past 3 years, going from a 2-win team to a 6-win team to a 9-win team. You can't help but be happy about that. And I don't want to hog it all up here. And I want to start by introducing my esteemed colleagues. I'm going to start with Michael Pless of Real Bucs Talk. And Michael, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, everyone, you can follow us at Real Bucs Talk. We're just a site that covers the Buccaneers, and we love talking Bucs football. This is going to be our busy time now since the season's over. We get really into free agency, draft, everything you can think of, and we're just excited for this team. We go into the offseason with a winning season, and come next season.
All right. Well, you know what? I say the guy, the man of the hour, the most electrifying man on sports talk radio on Saturdays. Peter Blake, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I was only one game off away from that 10-win plateau that we talked about at the beginning of the season. But right now, you got to feel good if you're a Bucs fan because it's a winning season once again for last year. And you know what? If you want to tune into the most entertaining sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area, the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 5, the Sports Web. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense.
That's right. And you know what? This season, 9 wins, that was not nonsense. That was something to be proud of. That was something to be excited about. Personally, I started out with kind of a high number, but once we got into the regular season, I tapered off and I came with 7 wins. And the Bucs have exceeded everything that I expected. And guys, what I want to start out with, I want to talk about this Carolina Panthers game. And I'm going to start out by saying this is a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you go back last year or the year before, they don't win this game. I feel like the culture's changing. This is one of those teams where coaching has changed, and they're learning how to win games. They're playing as a team. They're overcoming adversity, and they're doing what they need to do. And the one thing that we can say about this team we have not seen is the fact that the defense came in and did what they needed to do to seal this game up. So, I want to get your thoughts on the game. Let's start with you, Peter. And let me get your thoughts on this game. You were there in the press box. I'd like to get your take on everything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 3 turnovers by the defense. You have Brent Grimes with the pick 6. He's been unbelievable this year. Whoever said that this guy's lost a step, they need to turn on the film because he's been unbelievable. And how about the guy on the spot, Keith Tandy? If this guy doesn't get the starting position for the safety next year, there needs to be an investigation because he has the instincts. It seems like he's always around the ball. He's aggressive, but he believes in the system. And this defense in the Carolina game played very well. They shut out Cam Newton. They frustrated him. They got pressure on him. Pretty win. But you know what? It's like Jameis Winston said a couple weeks ago. A win is a win. And you know what? The New Orleans game, the Dallas game, defensively, they weren't great. They didn't cause the turnovers, but they did in the Carolina game, and that's why they won on Sunday.
That's right. And Michael, why don't you jump in here? What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was just very typical Bucs win. I mean, this is how the Bucs have been winning this season. You go through that 5-game winning streak. They were just pretty much finding ways to win, and that's what they did this past week. The offense just did enough. They got the turnovers that they needed on defense, like Peter said. Game pressure after the quarterback, and it was just a good game overall. I mean, to get that win, get to 9-7. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't the most prettiest game, but they just grinded it out and kept fighting, and that's what you want to see from this team. And I think that's what they've learned this season, to just keep playing that full 60 minutes and never give up till the game is over, and that's what's encouraging.
Yeah, and that's something you have to build on for next year. That's what you have to look at is you have that foundation. And I know at the beginning of the season, even before they played it down, that's the one thing that I mentioned. Tampa has that foundation with the Quan Alexander, with a Levante David, with a Gerald McCoy, and you bring in some key pieces. You draft a Vernon Hargraves, and you bring in a Brent Grimes on the other side of the field. A guy like a Keith Tandy, you bring him in where he's earned that spot. Yeah. And look what you've got there. Remember the secondary. Do you guys remember last year how many times we talked about how bad the secondary was? The secondary was not the strong point of this team. You guys remember that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I mean, this team was 3-5. I mean, they were absolutely getting destroyed by the Atlanta Falcons, and it seemed like all was lost with this defense. And then all of a sudden, Mike Smith kind of changed up the game plan. He simplified it. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago on the field, and he basically said to me, we're not there yet. Organization doesn't lose Smith because he is a talented coach. He's been a head coach in the league before. You want to keep that continuity like he did with the offense last year, but the defense definitely came leaps and bounds, and it started off with the pass pressure up front from the defensive line, guys like Robert Ayers and, of course, Noah Spence, who's fighting through a shoulder injury. I think the most encouraging thing about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2016, adversity, they faced injuries, and they still finished 9-7. Now, can you imagine next year with another draft, another year of free agency, and all these guys back healthy? It is something encouraging to talk about. You can hear it in my voice. I'm excited about 2017, 2016. Let's go on to 2017. Let's hit free agency. Let's hit the draft, and let's hit the year because I'm encouraged. But hopefully this organization can keep Mike Smith around to, again, keep that continuity on the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
mean, go ahead, Mike.
The defense, we go from dead last and third down defense, and now you're first and third down defense. I mean, that's called improvement right there. I mean, you go from last to first on third down, getting teams off the field, getting the ball back to your offense. I mean, that says it all right there. That's what makes a good defense. To be able to do that, and then to get the pass rush that we were able to get this year, I thought was very encouraging. And it's just, and we're going to get better even next year.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's a point. You bring up a great point, because last year that was the bane of my existence, was the fact that this defense could not get anybody off the field on third down. That continued to be a problem. That continued to cause the Bucs a lot of problems as far as wins. There were times where Tampa was in a position to win. Jameis Winston put him in a position to win, but the defense couldn't hold up their end of the deal. Now, at that time, and Peter, I know you remember this, we were questioning, is this coaching? Is this play calling? What's going on here? Why is this happening? I mean, we have the talent to get out there and make some plays and make some things happen. What's going on here? And lo and behold, we have a totally different coaching staff, and you're seeing a totally different environment, a totally different culture within this team. And that's, that right there is your answer right there.
Yeah, no, I think it is the answer. And we talked about it last year. Was Lovie Smith and his coaches the problem? And I think you can say, yeah, because what did you change on the offensive line? Even though the offensive line kind of regressed, what did you change? How many penalties did you have on that offensive line, on that offensive unit, on the team as a whole? They cut down on the penalty situation. On top of that, you improved the wins. On top of that, let's just go back a couple of weeks ago. In trouble, he's not suspended by the NFL, but Dirk Carter decides to sit him down because he thinks it's best for the team. Even though there's a playoff situation, even though this could be the biggest game of the year, he decides to sit down Doug Martin because this team has gone through a whole transformation where they're not going to put up with stuff like that. And I love it. I love the whole approach by this coaching staff. And once again, you hope that they can keep the continuity because there's going to be some coaches you may lose if Mike Smith goes, and you hope that doesn't happen. But you're exactly right. Last year at this time, it was at this time last year where they fired Lovie Smith, and there was controversy from ESPN and Fox Sports and all these people saying that Lovie Smith didn't get a fair shot, which, by the way, he went 8-24, which he probably deserved to be fired. In saying that, though, you look now, it was a great decision by the Buccaneer organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look back on it and you look at where they are now, and everybody, all the players, the coaches, the staff, everybody's buying into this culture. Everybody's buying into this being competitive, playing games. I mean, look at Quan Alexander. And, you know, it's a culmination of things. I think not only the coach, but you look at the quarterback. And Tampa has never seen a quarterback like our quarterback that we have, Jameis Winston. We've never seen anything like this. A guy that's a gym rat. He wants to be in there. He wants to continually learn. He wants to continually get better. He's a leader at 22 years old. Can you imagine it? A kid at this age that's a leader, that's leading men, leading veterans, and you know, he's really doing what he needs to do to win. And what do we have? Quan Alexander. He sees this example and he kind of goes and he's following this example. And we've seen the improvement that he's continually showing that you know, the Bucs got a steal drafting him where they did.
4th round, yeah. 4th round, unbelievable. And talking about Jameis Winston, I know, Michael, you want to talk about this, but Jameis Winston becomes the franchise leader in touchdown passes with 28 in his second year. And he's the only NFL quarterback in NFL history, his first 2 years, to throw for 4,000 yards. And yet there will still be fans that will tell me that Jameis Winston is a bust. Progression. There was no sophomore slump this year. You have to say, when has this man had the offensive line healthy? When has he had 2 good wide receivers? And yet he's still putting up these type of numbers. It has to be exciting if you're a Buccaneer fan. You have to get excited about Jameis Winston being the franchise face of this organization.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, go ahead, Mike.
Back to your earlier points, you know, I think it all goes back to communication. You know, you look at this team, everything's on the same page finally now, where coaches and players are understanding, you know, what they much as far as schemes, understanding what they have to do as just every day, whether it's practice or in the game. The details are there finally, and guys are in position to succeed, and that's what you want. That's what generates wins pretty much. You know, as far as Jameis Winston, I mean, me and my team here at Real Bucs Talk, we Jameis before he was even mentioned about. So we were happy when we got him. We went to the draft in Chicago just to see him be selected by the Bucs. So we're more than excited to have Jameis Winston as our quarterback, and so should every Bucs fan, because the guy is a winner. The guy knows what it takes to get, you know, to win and what to lead, and he's just going to keep getting better. I'm really excited for him and this future of this franchise. So that pretty much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, we talk about you know, what Tampa has been capable of doing, and you know, the really nice thing is. Jameis Winston was able to accumulate all this with one receiver, a tight end in Cameron Brate, who was not a top 3 round draft pick, Humphreys, who was an undrafted free agent. I mean, there's just so much that Jameis Winston is able to accomplish without having these top tier draft picks and our top tier players, and you know, he's been able to do that, and he's been able to make plays with his legs. And I don't know if anybody remembers the draft, and Jameis ran what, a 5.9 40 or something like that, and the internet blew up. I mean, Twitter was ridiculous, where people were making fun of this guy because of his 40 time. But you look at the plays that this guy makes with his legs. I mean, I've seen plays that are like on ESPN that Jameis Winston's making, and then you look at a Marcus Mariota, who, I'm not taking anything away from Mariota at all, because he's been very good when he's healthy, but Jameis Winston is another guy that he's just making these plays with his legs, and he continues to expand these plays. Oh, it's 497. Thanks, Mark.
Gets the pocket, gets outside, makes plays happen whenever he gets the chance to get outside of the pocket. When he does those naked boots, he can make things happen. And it really doesn't matter what receiver it was. I mean, you have Mike Evans, you have Russell Shepard, Freddie Martino, Josh Huff, guys off the street, and he's still making those type of plays. So it's very exciting to see that. I think he's the second-rated quarterback in the NFL when he's outside of the pocket. Dak Prescott's number one. That's pretty good company. So, yeah, I mean, it's just encouraging. Is it disappointing to see this offense? Would you like to have more weapons? To steal something from Justin Pawlowski, who does a podcast, and Joe Bucs fan. Weapons for Winston. Let's focus on that in 2017. Franchise quarterback out. Let's get him some weapons. Let's get him some wide receivers. Let's get him a new starting running back.
Yeah, and anything is possible. Anything is possible. And, we're talking about all these different players. What do you guys think about the idea of competition for Roberto Aguayo?
Started. I mean, they.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's already started. Yeah, I mean, it's already started. They just signed a kicker, I think, yesterday. It was, I think it's Langford, I think is his last name. I don't know yeah, so they just picked up a kicker yesterday. So, I mean, it's pretty much started. I think it's good. I think they need to bring in competition for every position. So I thought it was a mistake when they didn't do it last year. I thought they should have brought in another kicker for Aguayo this last season. So I'm glad they're learning from their mistakes and bringing a guy in this year to push him, and it will just make him better. So I think it's a good move by the Bucs.
All right.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with Michael. I think it's a great move because you see what kind of kicker you have, and if he folds under pressure and he loses his job, well, then it was meant to be. You wasted a second-round pick. But I was in favor of the Aguayo pick. I liked it because I understood that a couple years ago, by 3 points, because of special teams, guy that comes into the NFL and doesn't make 30 to 40-yard kicks. He has to make those type of kicks. And you drafted Aguayo to make those distance kicks. Him even attempt those because they were worried to miss those kicks. So definitely competition needs to be at every position, including kicker. It's going to bring the best out of him. We're going to see if he's a kicker or he's a great bust, which a lot of people already around the Tampa Bay area have assumed. I'm not ready to assume that. I'll just say this. For the Aguayo haters out there, Sebastian Janikowski, I think, had a low, something like 67 or 68% kicking percentage his first year. He turned out to be pretty good. So let's not kill this guy. But again, like you said, going back to the point, do they need competition at this position? Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, we'll kind of get back to the game because I want to save the second half of the show talking about draft picks and possible potential free agents that could come in. It's always fun to talk about what if and who we would like to see coming in. But, where I want to kind of go back to this Bucs game. And, Cam Newton was 6-2 going into this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this was a guy that when he had his way, he would come in and he was celebrating, and you saw the Superman and all this the other things that he does when he calls himself having fun or whatever. But I think the Bucs were able to contain him. They were able to frustrate him. And I love the play. Brent Grimes jumps the route and gets that interception. And you could just look at the look on his face and tell that this was not something that he was expecting to see from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, no, he was definitely devastated. And that's the way you get into Cam Newton's head. You hit him, you frustrate him, you basically get him to lose. And then once you get him to lose, then he folds. I mean, Buccaneers frustrated him on Sunday, and I think that he's never gotten over the Super Bowl, quite frankly. I think he's had a bad year. Has he taken a lot of late hits? Yes. And they may have affected him this year. Maybe concussion, whatever else. It's been a bad year for Cam Newton for the Tampa Bay defense on Sunday.
Yeah. And, when you look at Cam Newton, I remember him going through that one loss season. He bounced back from stuff a lot better because they were winning. And like you said, I don't know if that demoralized game demoralized him, but he last season. Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Peter mentioned this. The more you hit Cam Newton, I mean, he's just gonna fold. I mean, he doesn't do well under adversity. He doesn't have the competitive nature that a Jameis Winston does, because Winston will just keep fighting no matter what. And Cam Newton kind of he's pretty much what I say is a front runner. If things are going well, he's going to play really awesome. If things are going bad, he's just going to keep going down. And that's what the Bucs did to him. They got him out of rhythm. I mean, he had that first great drive. You thought, hey, maybe he's going to put up a good game, but then he just started forcing some passes, and the Bucs got to him, 3 interceptions, and kept coming after him pressure-wise, and Newton.
Yeah, 2 sacks by Levante David, 3 sacks overall. When you get that type of pressure on Cam Newton, you force him to make the decisions that you don't want him to. If you force him, you keep him in that pocket, and you let him try to read a defense, I think you can intercept him. I think you can, with all the great things that Cam Newton does, and he does some great things in the NFL, and to stay in that pocket and read a defense and go through his progressions, I think he struggles a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the 3 interceptions. I mean, they're all from him just standing in the pocket. The Bucs are getting pushed up that middle, and he's forced to throw it. And we pretty much pick it off. It's an easy interception. You look at the Brent Grimes pick 6. I mean, that's just a simple out route, and Grimes is just sitting right there. It's easy pick. I mean, you just can't make those throws.
Yeah, and, making rookie mistakes like staring down your receiver doesn't help matters either.
Mm-mm.
No, and he did it a couple weeks ago against Atlanta. They seemed like they were in the game. He's back in the pocket. He's throwing in double coverage. The guy is back. The linebacker is back. He's watching the route. He's watching Cam's eyes, and he's picked him off because he knows that when you keep Cam Newton in that pocket, and again, you let him go through those progressions, you're going to get some picks. So you're nothing against Cam Newton. I just think that's one part of his game that he has to improve on in the future. And if not, he's just going to be what he is. He's going to be a quarterback that can make some plays outside of the pocket, and that's it. I think in order for him to get better as a quarterback, he's got to get better from the pocket, and it's got to be consistent. It can't be just 1 year. You're exactly right, Michael. He is a front runner. When things aren't going well for Cam Newton turns in crybaby, basically. So.
And
exactly.
Guys, here's something I want you to think about. I listened to an interview with Cortland Finnegan, who actually was able to play for the Carolina Panthers. And he mentioned that the play calling is the same last year as what you see this year. And is it possible that all people have to do is look at last year's game film and they have this offense figured out? You brought back a Kelvin Benjamin, who was not part of that one-win team last year. And that in itself, for a competitive team, having a healthy receiver. But, it just didn't work out that way. And it looked like the defense was out of sync as well. The defense wasn't as dominant as what you've seen in previous years. The secondary seemed to have done a lot better than what it had been doing throughout the season. So, it's just a lot of different things, and it's nothing you can really pinpoint as to why Carolina is playing the way they are, or if last year was just an anomaly. But that's just the one thing that kind of stood out to me in that interview was he said that basically they don't make adjustments calling, and they stick with the same play calling. There may be a few wrinkles here and there, but what you seen last year is the same thing as what you saw this year. And I think that really affected Carolina as well.
And that go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't surprise me. I mean, because their offensive coordinator is Mike Shula. Mike Shula was a coach for the Bucs, and I remember going to those games, and he was, it was god awful. I mean, of course, he didn't have a talent, the talent that the Panthers have now, but But yeah, I mean, he's pretty much predictable as far as his play calling, and it doesn't surprise me that he didn't make adjustments for this offense and didn't change it up, because he pretty much sticks with the same stuff. It's either crossing route, another dig route, and then just run up the middle, and that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, and you throw in a little bit of read option or a quarterback draw, and there's your Carolina offense.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it comes down to the ability of Cam Newton, and to go once again to go through those progressions. Maybe he doesn't necessarily trust Newton to do that, and also the injuries to Jonathan Stewart have not helped this offense. Because look, you can talk about Cam Newton, Calvin Benjamin, and Ted Ginn, but at the end of the day, and this offense has to run the ball. They showed it. If they don't have that running game, they are a totally different offense, guys.
Yeah. And we've seen that in years past where they've been able to move the chains on the Tampa Bay Bucs at will, and they've been able to extend plays. And just the fact that our defense at this time was able to go out there and make some plays and make some stops, I think was beneficial in us winning. And again, like I say, I keep looking at this game and I think, man, this is that game. If it were last year or year before last, Tampa doesn't win this game. So it's something to really be excited about and very motivated for next year, because, we're starting to build that depth. And I promise folks, the watchers, everybody that's watching, I won't bring this up again, but when you continually have to recycle coaches, recycle general managers, and keep bringing players in and keep switching out players, you cannot build a foundation for winning for a winning organization. And that's what we've been seeing. And now you're starting to see this consistency. You're starting to see where Tampa's starting to put all this together. And, this is what we have to look forward to next season. Even if we do lose our defensive coordinator, we have some people that have been put in place that can come in and kind of keep that consistency or that cohesiveness to keep things going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jay Hayes is be one of those guys that may be the next defensive coordinator of this team. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Mike Smith gets a job, but that's the thing you worry about. But if they stay in-house with Jay Hayes, I think they're going to be okay, because they may be doing the same thing. But you would like Levante David and Gerald McCoy to have the same defensive coordinator. They talk about offense and Jameis Winston having the same. You would like those two players to have the same defensive coordinator, because if you look back, they've had different defensive coordinators, it seems like, every year. And you're exactly right. In order to build a foundation, you have to have consistency with your coaching. If not, you're basically the Cleveland Browns, and nobody wants to be the Cleveland Browns.
Right. Absolutely. So, guys, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say I completely agree. I mean, if we do lose Mike Smith, I think they go with Mark Duffner, though. I think they go with the linebackers coach, just because he's closer to Mike Smith. He knows the defense. He knows the defense very well. So I think he would be the guy they promote. I think they would like to keep Jay Hayes at the defensive line coach position. Experience as a defensive coordinator at his time with the Bengals. So that was before Marvin Lewis got there. So I think he would be a guy they would go after to promote. But it'll be interesting. It'll be nice to keep Mike Smith. He's a great coach, a great man. To keep him in the same system and keep these players, finally 2 years in a row in the same system would be nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, go ahead.
It actually could be Jay Hayes, and I'll tell you why. Because last year they got this coach to come over from Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, they talked to Hayes and they said, look, Mike Smith may be moving on. You're going to be the new defensive coordinator, because why would you go laterally? Why would you go from the Bengals job to the Bucs job unless you were promised something? I think it's actually Jay Hayes. I really do. Okay. I think he's the new defensive coordinator if Mike Smith leaves. That's a big if, but it's certainly a possibility, because Smith, he has the pedigree. A retread coach that hasn't won. He's won everywhere in the NFL. He's done great things. So he may be getting a job with the San Diego Chargers or another team out there. Why wouldn't they hire him?
Right.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, guys, I do want to switch gears a little bit. I want to, we're on into the off season. We've gotten to discuss the last game of the season, and Peter, I'm going to start with you. Let's put our GM hats on here for a minute, and
Sure.
I want to start with you. And as you're looking at your draft board, you got the number 19 pick in the 2017 NFL draft. Where do you go?
It's easy for me, honestly. You could go wide receiver, you could go offensive tackle, but for me, you go to Tallahassee, you get yourself a running back in Dalvin Cook. History repeats itself because 20 years ago, you drafted a guy by the name of Ward Dunn, and how did that work out? His first year, you went to the playoffs. Cook can do it all. He's dynamic. He can catch the ball. He fits Dirk Cutter's offense to a T. And look, teams in the NFL, maybe they're passing teams. But if you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the emphasis is on the running game. Dalvin Cook. And I'll tell you right now, I'll throw this out there. If you have to trade up for Cook, make the deal, because a game-breaking, changing running back like a Cook doesn't necessarily come around every year, but it just so happens there was one this year. His name was Ezekiel Elliott. How are those Dallas Cowboys doing?
Yeah, and let's look at it this way. I know you're talking about moving up in the draft. What if he's not available? I mean, they drafted Ezekiel Elliott pretty high last year. Let's just say, for instance, he's off the board. Where do you go next?
I think you have to go wide receiver. I think you have to look at that situation. Maybe Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. I mean, he definitely looks like Terrell Owens on film, doesn't he, guys? I mean, 6'3", 225. He's got some speed. Maybe there's a Mike Williams. Maybe I don't think he does, because he could be the closest thing to Calvin Johnson, but a Corey Davis, maybe a John Ross, who scouts have compared to Antonio Brown. And maybe if there's an offensive lineman on the board, maybe you go in that direction, or maybe you go a defensive end and a Derek Barnett from Tennessee. There remains to be a lot to be seen here. The indicator is going to be free agency, where they go. If I'm the Bucs, I go into free agency. I go out and get yourself some wide receivers to help this offense out, and then I address those positions. But talking about the offensive line, because it seems like it's a popular topic, we need to build this line. You're not going to reach for a pick. Cam Robinson may be a right tackle. I doubt he's a left tackle. I think he's more of a right tackle. And the kid out of Wisconsin, he's already have injury. Do you want to draft damaged goods because you need, or do you want to draft the best player on the board? That's why I say what it is. If there's a wide receiver on the board, he's going to fill your need, you take it. If there's a running back on the board, which there very well may be, Cook and Fournette may be on the board. It's not crazy to think that a team out there will say, you know what, running backs are a dime a dozen. So you look at that situation, do the Buccaneers need defense? Absolutely. I'm not drafting the safety, but I will draft a defensive lineman. So, that's where I would go if I'm the GM of this team.
All right. And Michael, where do you go?
You could go a lot of different directions. You look at this draft, you look at the strengths of the draft. I think it's very strong at defensive end. I think it's very strong at the running back position. It's also very strong, I think, in wide receiver, even though it's more top heavy. Tight end class is very good. I think offensive line, unfortunately, is very weak this year. So the line, I talked about it with Eugene. I think they need to address the center position. I think the center position is probably their most weakest position on the O-line. So, but first round, I agree with Dalvin Cook. I would love to have him. He's a great player. Do we trade up for him? I don't know. It just depends on what your options are. But knowing how Jason Light thinks, knowing how he likes to get guys that love football, very intelligent players, guys that are from the neck up, that are going to prepare and try to get better. I think you go with Corey Davis. I think that's our guy. I think that's the guy you want to take, just because I've done a lot of research on him. I know what kind of man he is, what kind of player he is. The guy's in the gym every day just working on his craft. He's pretty much a Jameis Winston clone as far as a football player. He's that kind of guy. He's also Jay Fleck was the Bucs receivers coach, and he pretty much called Corey Davis the hardest working receivers than Vincent Jackson. So that is quite an accomplishment right there. So I think if he's on the board, I think he's our guy. I think they need weapons for Winston, like you said earlier. So I think that's the way we go.
Yeah.
And going back to coaching, the thing I like about Cook and the thing that I like about what Jimbo Fisher said after the Orange Bowl, think about sitting out for it. Well, he basically said, if there's a scoreboard, Cook wants to play. I mean, that's the type of player you want on this team. You want to emulate. Corey Davis is that type of player. He wants to go out there and be competitive. Bring him here. But it's going to be really interesting because in most years at number 19, you're not going to end up with a great pick, but it seems like this draft is so deep that you may end up with a impact player that's definitely going to help this offense and possibly this defense. Let's not rule out defense now, guys.
Yeah. I mean, the edge class is very strong. I mean, we could go with a defensive end very easily. I like Carl Lawson out of Auburn. I like Derek Barnett. So any of those guys could be available. I mean, it just depends. Even defensive tackle. I mean, the guy from Stanford, Solomon Thomas, is another strong kid that probably one of the better defensive tackles besides Jonathan Allen, who's going to be a top 5 pick. So there's a lot of directions we could go. And go with the O.J. Howard. Yeah, and because he can block and he gives you another weapon. And I'll tell you another thing, guys. Maybe you go south of the border and you go get yourself a taco. Okay, I'm not talking about getting yourself a taco. I'm talking about Taco Charlton from Michigan. Did you watch that game? I mean, they had the double on him. He looks like the prototypical rusher, 6'3", 6'4", 272. He kind of looks like a little bit. Probably a more built than Noah Spence, more further along. Well, we'll see if he can play the run. But if you watch that Michigan game, man, he looked pretty good, didn't he?
Yeah, most
absolutely.
Definitely. Now, guys, I kind of wanted to break this down a little bit. For the first pick, you've got the Cleveland Browns. Second pick, you've got the 49ers. Third pick, you've got the Chicago Bears. And this is all pending any kind of switches or any trades up or whatever. Jacksonville Jaguars is at number 5. The New York Jets are at number 6. Number 7. Carolina's at number 8. And Cincinnati number 9. And then you have the Buffalo Bills that round out the top 10. They're just – all these teams have specific needs. All these teams are highly deficient in certain areas. When I look at these teams and where they're hurting at, and I look at Tampa, Tampa doesn't look as bad as some of these other teams. You look at Cleveland, you look at a 49ers team. I think Jacksonville just was not coached right. I think that, if you get the right coach in there, I think that you'll see a quick turnaround for those guys as well. But there are just so many teams with needs. Unless Jason Light can pull something off to move way up there, I just don't see how how Cook is available by the time you get down to the number 19 position, unless they work something out. Go ahead.
The situation would be number 8 Carolina. They need a running back because Jonathan Stewart could be hurt, so maybe that's where Fournette goes. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe they're picking 12 or 13, so they may need a running back. And then Indianapolis Colts at 15. So if you could possibly slide up there somewhere, I don't know, maybe the Arizona Cardinals, guys. I'm just throwing it out there because, there is a connection between Jason Light organization. So maybe the Buccaneers slide up there if they feel like if Philadelphia passes up on him and they feel like the Indianapolis Colts possibly could take him. I could see that.
Yeah, there you go. And I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jason Light does a great job of finding his biggest need to match up with the best player available. You look at Mike Evans, that was our biggest need in 2014. 2015, we get the best player with the quarterback. And then last year, you get Vernon Hargreaves, which addressed our biggest need in the secondary. So he does a good job of finding guys that are going to fit his needs, but also be the best player available on the board. Dalvin Cook, if the Bucs decide, hey, we need a running back, we need to get this running game back on track, because if we have a running game, that's what makes our offense go, then I could see them, possibly trading up if it works out as far as making sense for now and the future. You go up and get a Dalvin Cook, pair him with Jameis Winston. Winston has already raved about Dalvin Cook. He said he's probably the best running back he's played with. So you go up and get him. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it if you can make it happen. But it depends on how high you got to go. Again, this is a copycat league. Like Gene said, Ezekiel Elliott went number 4 last year. So teams are probably going to copycat that. And you could see Fournette, Cook all go in the top 10.
Very true.
Most definitely. And, another position that we haven't even mentioned, and I feel it needs to be addressed, is the return game. Our return game was atrocious this year. And that was something I felt like we had one half of the field position battle won with a great punter. But on the other end of the ball, we just didn't have that guy that was getting us those extra yards and moving the ball out to the 30 or the 40 or, past the 25 or something to that effect, to where Jameis Winston can come out there and go to work. And that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's something that it should be very high on the list, is getting the special teams portion of this game, of this team, getting that addressed. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. I thought Bobby Rainey did a decent job, but I look at some of the other teams that have guys that are explosive, that are playmakers, and Tampa just didn't have it. Muffing the ball on the 5, muffing the ball on the 1. You can't have that. If you're going to be a winning football team, that's something that needs to be addressed. And it's something I know it's unheard of to draft a special teams player that high. I mean, within the first round, but it is something that, as a team, I think Tampa needs to address. I don't know if they address it in free agency. Again, I haven't really studied free agency. I want to bring you guys back on when we've all had a chance to look at free agency, see who's available, see who's a good fit for the offense and the defense and special teams, and just kind of go from there. But I know for me, that's one of the big holes that I see on this team that really need to be addressed.
Well, you know what? You're exactly right, because you go back a couple of weeks ago versus the New Orleans Saints. Josh Huff, he bobbled the ball. He did it in the first game versus the Saints. It really didn't come back to haunt him. But in the second game in New Orleans, it came back to haunt him, because I think a couple plays later, Jameis Winston threw an interception. He was in his own end zone. That's not where you want to be on offense. I got a solution for you. You want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? How about Christian McCaffrey from Stanford? He can do it all. Multi-purpose running back. Can kick return, maybe punt return. Can be a running back for you. I don't know if he can handle the rigors of handling number 1 duties. I don't know if he's a third down player, but he's definitely got the explosive nature. Maybe at 19, where the Buccaneers feel like they don't have the player on the board, maybe they trade down, because we've seen Jason Light before trade down. You talk about Vernon Hargreaves. He traded down, and he still got his player, and he still got an extra pick. So Jason Light is very aggressive. I will say this to the point of trading up or trading down. Look at the Atlanta Falcons some years ago when they felt like their offense needed a spark. They traded up for Julio Jones, and even though it cost them a lot of picks, Julio Jones. So I would not throw out the possibility of him trading up. I would also not throw out the possibility of him trading down, because, again, you need players on this team. You have multiple positions that you have to fill, and one of those main ones and getting speed on this team. We need speed. We need speed. You don't teach speed. You need speed. We got to get speed on this team. You got to get it this year in the draft or in free agency.
Yeah, most definitely. So, and another thing that I'm looking at, is the safety position. I know we're looking at Keith Tandy, and having him in one of those positions, based on how he played, and I thought he played really good. He saved us on a couple of possessions, and he's kind of earned that. Is there anybody in free agency? Because we're going to look at free agency before you have to look at the draft. Anybody out there that we could possibly look at to possibly compete for a safety position?
Yes. His name is Eric Berry. He's in Kansas City. I mean, if I have my druthers and I'm the GM of this team, he's probably one of the first calls I make. And yeah, he's going to cost you money. But guess what, Tampa Bay fans? You have the third most money in free agency. Once you cut Werner and possibly Doug Martin, you could possibly have $90 million. So that would be one of my first calls that I would make. It'd be Eric Berry, because he's a playmaker. And on top of it, the guy's been through adverse situations. I mean, he comes back from cancer. He slays cancer. I want this guy on my team if I can get him, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. I would say one guy would be Tony Jefferson out of Arizona. I think that would be a guy we would target. Maybe him or some type of veteran. I would see a veteran. We would try to get back there. Eric Berry would be great. I don't know if he's going to be available, though. I think Kansas City is going to do everything they can to keep him. But I think Tony Jefferson would be a guy that we would try to target. He's got the Arizona connection with Jason Light. So he would be a guy I think we would look at. But I'm very confident in our safeties. I thought they played much better. I like how Keith Tandy came on. I think he's going to be a starter going forward. And I think they'll draft a safety just because the safety class this year is very good. It's very deep. So they'll definitely pick up a safety, whether it's free agency or the draft.
So who do you see as a safety that would fit into this system?
That's too early to tell right now. I mean, gone into it.
Yeah, I got you. How about Jabril Peppers from Michigan? He would be a guy, even though he's a little bit smallish. You think of Earl Thomas. How about a Malik Hooker from Ohio State? You turn on the tape of him. He's everywhere. That would be a type of player that you maybe take a look at. I know a guy that Quan Alexander is all over, because not only is an LSU guy, but he also can hit you right in the mouth. That's Jamal Adams. He's the type of player that the Buccaneers maybe like at that safety position. So you're exactly right, Michael. The safety position this year is plentiful. There's plenty of safeties out there in this draft. So maybe that's a position that you may see. Hey, look, if he's first round guy, if you believe that he is the best player on the board, you take him. If Jamal Adams is on the board, if Jabril Peppers, with all the things that he can do, I believe he's also a punt returner. He can play running back, some linebacker, and he's played some safety. But what you know about Mr. Peppers is he's all over the field, kind of like Charles Woodson. I won't call him as good as Charles Woodson, but he's got that same dynamic. So that may be a player that is, if he's there because he's undersized, because he was injured in the bowl game, that you may take a look at number 19.
Yeah, it's interesting. All these people that you're talking about right now, a lot of these guys won't be there. I mean, you keep forgetting that we're at number 19 and you have 18 other teams that are ahead of us. And
Sure.
I see Jason Light moving up. I see him finding a player that, that diamond in the rough player, just like what he's been doing over the last few drafts, where he's found guys that are multifaceted. They're able to play different positions, and he's able to utilize these guys in this system. The thing that I really love about Jason Light is his connection with the head coach and the defensive coordinators that, this year, and I'm sure this will transition in the next year, where he's going out and getting these players that are low risk, high reward players that he can plug in and use those players to be successful. So, a lot of the guys that you mentioned, like I see the Buffalo Bills having a need, and you talked about the safety for Ohio State. That would be a player I would see fall into a Buffalo Bills team because of what they, their needs.
I mean, Stephon Gilmore is a free agent. So, again, free agency is the biggest indicator. So maybe they need a quarterback because Gilmore gets – you're exactly right. But I'm saying, is safety a big-time need in the NFL? I mean, does everybody need a safety? So there's a possibility, especially with Peppers. You know, you really don't know. With his size, people say he's undersized. Well, they said the same thing about Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas turned out pretty well besides the injury this year. So who knows? You just have to watch and see. That's why – even at 19, there's going to be a player there that you least expect, a impactful player that you didn't expect for the Buccaneers to get. They may just get him at 19. You may be surprised.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting. You know, when you look at a Quan Alexander, and I will never forget this. When Quan Alexander was drafted, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. We got that guy." And what did he do? He comes out and he's knocking people's heads off and stuff. You know, he was a good fit. And again, that just kind of goes to what Jason Licht is able to do based on, you know, what he was able to bring in last year. You have a guy like the offensive lineman, Caleb Benenoch. I know he didn't have a stellar season, but he was able to come in and start a game. And just players like that are able to come in and make a difference. Jason Licht is continually going out and finding these players.
No, and again, you know, free agency. I think people should keep an eye out on the receiver position. Alshon Jeffrey's out there. I like this guy. There's some injury history, but he's a 26-year-old wide receiver. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but you know what? Side with Mike Evans, who do you double? That's a great problem to have. Terrell Pryor is a player that may get out of Cleveland if they don't sign him. A Deshaun Jackson and Emmanuel Sanders. Guys like that are going to be out there in free agency, and I want people to keep an eye out. Vikings, especially their offensive line. Matt Khalil, who's a left tackle, is a free agent. Andre Smith, who's also a free agent at right tackle. They don't have a lot of cap room, so can they sign both of those players? I think, honestly, the Buccaneers, if they do a good job in free agency in the draft this year, they're going to be fine in 2017.
Yeah, most definitely. As long as they're making upgrades in a lot of the problem positions.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Vikings. I think Cordell Patterson is a guy that the Bucs could possibly go after, especially you're talking about return position. I think he'd be an instant upgrade, someone that has speed, someone that you can bring along and maybe compete for that third wide receiver spot or even fourth receiver spot. So it just gives you depth, and I think that's the kind of signings that you're going to be looking for from this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you want players that are multifaceted, that you can use them all over the place. So it's just one of those things again where Jason Licht goes out and finds these players and he's able to use them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
And Doug, one of your writers, Doug O'Connor, who's on listening to us. Thanks for checking us out. He mentioned that Benenoch did have a good season for a player not supposed to be active on Sunday, let alone see the field. He's one of those low, he's one of the low round players that we were able to pick. Tampa was able to get some use out of him. So again, what the general manager has been able to do since he's been in Tampa is a testament to how this team is improving year after year. So it's something to really be excited about.
Yeah, and I think they kind of envisioned Benenoch being in the same category as Kevin Panfill. When Kevin Panfill came here, he was a raw prospect, played right tackle in college. You really didn't know what to expect, and then finally he found his niche. Maybe Caleb Benenoch is the same type of player. I mean, 5th-round pick out of UCLA. We'll see what happens. You never know. These guys need time to develop. Built in a day. So we'll see what happens. I love what Jason Licht does. I think he's building it the right way. I think he definitely knows what he's doing, especially with the draft. Because you just don't say, 4th, 5th-round pick, these guys are not going to make. But look at Ryan Smith and his impact just on special teams, how good he was this year, being a gunner. So just don't rule out Jason Light because he definitely knows what he's doing, especially with the late round picks, which Mark Dominic didn't do a good job of when he was here.
Oh, he didn't do good with the early round picks. But there's neither here nor there. So, guys, I want to get both. This has just been that season. That there have been so many amazing plays. I want to get each one of you guys to give me your play of the 2016 season. And Peter, I'm going to start with you this time, and give me your play, and let me know what your favorite play was for this season.
It had to be the magic of Winston against the Chicago Bears. It looks like he's dead to rights. He escapes, I believe, 2 or 3 sacks and throws a 38-yard rope to Mike Evans. It was a big play for them in that game versus the Chicago Bears. Once again, he has that type of play, one of those type of plays, just like last year versus the Atlanta Falcons. 3rd and 19, he gets 20 yards. Same type of play. It's one of those plays you always see. Kind of reminds you of Brett Favre. He's a gunslinger. He's got that mentality, but he never gives up on the play, and that's why it's so exciting to watch Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sundays.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Mike, you want to get your play of the year.
I mean, I have 2 plays. I mean, they're both in the Falcons game. That first Falcons game, the Charles Sims touchdown, I thought that was awesome to see. I mean, he goes through, 8 guys, 8 defenders of the Falcons, and scores that touchdown right before the half. And then that Mike Evans catch, the one-handed catch, that was pretty awesome. I mean, he just goes up there, the ball's thrown behind him, just sticks an arm, a hand out, and just grabs it. So those are probably my 2 the Buccaneers history. I mean, it was awesome to see.
Yeah, well, this season, I'm a defensive guy. Just like your co-host Sean, the Sports Don, I'm a defensive guy. My favorite play, and you guys are probably gonna laugh at this, was that pick 6 that we just saw from Brent Grimes. Brent Grimes jumped that route, and I love aggressive defensive players. I mean, it's something that I really appreciate. And the fact that he could jump that route and he got a pick 6 and he took it to the house. I mean, I was so excited about that. I mean, that just got me pumped up. I know you guys were both at the game. I'm sure the crowd was pumped up as soon as that ball hit his hands and he was gone. So, that's just that was my play.
And to stay in bounds. Yeah.
Yes, he stays in bounds, and on top of it, did we say that Brent Grimes basically owns the Carolina Panthers this year? Because if you think about it, guys, in the Monday Night Football game, it looks like the Carolina Panthers are going to score at the goal line, and he jumps a route on Greg Olsen off to give the Buccaneers the ball back, and they go down, and I believe they score a field goal to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, so guys, the last part of this, I really want to touch on this. I want to get your MVPs for this team, and if somebody picks your MVP, you have to have somebody as a backup. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you this time. Who is your MVP for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the 2016 season?
I'm going to go. Does it have to be a player?
No, it doesn't. It's just the MVP in general.
I'm going to go with Dirk Cutter. I think Dirk Cutter was the MVP of this team. I thought the way he handled this team, the way he coached, I thought he was to have a winning season in his first year with all the adversity we faced, the injuries, changing schemes on defense, starting the year 3-5, and you're pretty much at a crossroad. And to get out of that and have your playoffs, I thought was outstanding. And also the way he handled the Doug Martin situation, I thought was outstanding. And the match, and just handling a young quarterback in Jameis Winston the right way. I think he should be in consideration for Coach of the Year. I thought he was that good.
And Peter, who is your MVP?
You could say Mike Evans. You could say Cameron Braid. You could say maybe Noah Spence if you wanted to, because he's played well this year, Quan Alexander. But for me, it's always goes back to Jameis Winston and the identity of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, with all the injury situations, with everything going on, this guy always seems like he keeps a calm demeanor. He broke records this year within the injury situation. To me, he's the MVP of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2016. If they don't have Jameis Winston, this team is nowhere close to 9 wins. They're just not.
Yeah, I can respect both of those picks. For me, it's Brian Anger. I feel like Brian Anger has put this team, especially the defense, in a position to pin the opposing offense back, and the defense has been able to go in and do their job very well. And to me, it's just been about him. Every time he's got a punt, he's pinned the team back, and they've had to fight extra hard to move up the field. And that's been my guy. I've been singing his praises since the midpoint of the season. This has just been my guy, and he was justly rewarded with that contract that he got because of what he's able to do. He is a weapon, and once he is coupled with a kick returner on the other end to complement, I think the special teams is going to be really dangerous for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you look at Jameis Winston and Dirk Cutter as a combination there. Those two guys really changed the culture here. As far as you hear Jameis talking about it every time. You know, this team was hoping to win here, and now they're expecting to win. And that's how far we've come as far as the culture and as far as this team. And that's what's exciting. So that's just something to look forward to. Now we're expecting to win. Now we are learning how to win. And I think we finally figured out this is what we have to do to win games.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like this game against the Carolina Panthers was very pivotal because it's important to go out strong, to go out and win a game that, that could easily have been lost. They set us up for next year. And you talk about Mike Evans, a guy that was much maligned by most of the fan base in Tampa for all the drops he had last year. The bounce back season that he's had this year silenced all of his critics and gave him a ticket to the Pro Bowl. So this is that, what these players have overcome adversity, and they put themselves in a position to get better, to improve season after season. And I'm nothing but excited for next season, regardless of who they bring in. I think that there will be improvements. They will make adjustments, which real good football teams are able to do. I feel like this is a team that's going to continue to make adjustments, and they're going to improve as the seasons progress.
No, you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
So, guys,
and the thing that I like about it is the fact that even though they won 9 games, they're going to be aggressive in free agency. They're going to try to build this team up even better. They're going to try to get better. They're not going to sit down and say, we're good enough. They're going to get better in 2017.
Yeah, most definitely. So, guys, this is the end of the season. I want to get your final thoughts on the season and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. And Michael, I'm going to start with you this time. And, give me your final thoughts on the season and let everybody know what you're doing and how everybody can get a hold of you for moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2016 season was, I think it was a year where, if you look at it, I mean, just to get 9 wins was very satisfying, I think, for this franchise. You season since 2010, it's been a long time. So I think just to be a winner for once and to have that winning feeling, even though we came up short of the playoffs, the defense has come such a long way, and now they're to this team, and now we just need to build up the offense a little bit to get that complete football team that we're looking for. So I think that's a positive in a whole, but I think for this season, I think we did a good job of building towards 2017, where we can really take NFC by a force, come out gangbusters.
Yeah.
And then as Real Bucs Talk, yeah, I mean, Real Bucs Talk, you can follow me there on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're just going to get ready for the off season. We're going to be pumping out free agency, draft articles, everything Bucs related. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we can't wait. And 2017 is going to be our year.
All right. One more question for you. Tell everybody who all is associated with Real Bucs Talk, just so they can, if they can follow them, or if they see them, or just so they can be able to get a hold of everybody. Within your organization.
I mean, yeah, me and my best friend Mark Ramirez, we run this site, but we also added a new writer in Douglas O'Connor. You can follow him at Rendex. He's on Twitter a lot. We're getting things going. This is our second year on Real Bucs Talk, and we're just really excited to expand and just keep it going and every day.
That is awesome. All right.
Yep.
And Peter Blake, Sports Web on Saturdays on FM radio.
That's right.
How they can get a hold of you.
That's right. The only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area from 3 to 5, the Sports Web. Bring your passion. Just don't bring any nonsense. And you're exactly right. It was not this year having to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was a step in the right direction. They could have won some games this year, possibly been in the playoffs. But you know what? The thing I like about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unlike last year, it seems like they're going in a direction. They have a plan. It's been presented. Follow through with it. And again, I want to say this because we're going to be talking about this on the Sports Web. Is it too late to say sorry? That's right. It's a Justin Bieber reference. Don't judge me. Why are the New York Giants getting on a boat? Or, by the way, if you get on a boat with Justin Bieber, that's like the Titanic. It's going down. Will it affect the New York Giants versus the Green Bay Packers? All the playoff matchups you want, because it's Wild Card Saturday on WTAN 1340 AM, 106.1 FM, TantalkNetwork.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, pblake1003, and also friend me on Facebook, Peter H. Blake, because not only do we have the Sports Web Radio edition, but also TV edition. Peter H. Blake, you got to friend me because I'm all about football, and you should too.
All right. That's what I'm talking about. Guys, a 9-win season, that was above my expectations. I picked this team to be a 7-win season in what they've been able to accomplish, especially on defense, where defense was a liability last year. Defense has been someone that's been able to come out and save this team from possible losses. So I'm really excited about next year. Again, special teams, our punter, Brian Anger, a guy that everybody needs to know his name. Everybody needs to follow him on Twitter. This guy has really put Tampa in a position to win some games. They've won as a team. They've lost as a team. But there are always standouts on every team. And for me, Brian Anger is one of those guys. Again, we have a good general manager who's a personnel general manager as well as a money general manager. So he knows what to do in order to make things work. And we've seen that over the past couple of seasons. And I hope that we will continue to see that moving forward. So I think that, bringing him in as a general manager was a really good move. Probably one of the biggest moves that Lovie Smith made. No offense to Lovie Smith or any of his Lovie Smith people out there. But to me, where Tampa is right now is it has a lot to do with the team. And it has even more to do with the coaching and getting the right coaching personnel in place to help this team to improve. So the team as a whole, they're trending in the right direction, and we're going to continue to see them trending in the right direction. You know what, guys? Tell your friends the bandwagon is filling up, and you better jump on for next year because you know what? Buc What You Heard is going to be big. So for me, I'm Gene Thomas, along with Michael Pless and Peter Blake. That's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for checking us out. Leave us some likes, and leave any questions or any comments you want to. Please leave them on there as well, and I'll get some answers. That's it for us. We had a great season. Peace out. Everybody say bye.
See you later.
See you.